9 Coronation Street Spoilers for next week, the 31st of March to the 4th of April. Tensions rise as Dee-Dee faces a traumatic labor, while Daisy's mother, Christina, schemes to bring down Jenny. Meanwhile, Debbie's health takes a turn for the worse when she suddenly collapses. And friction grows between Kevin and Tyrone as they struggle with parenting conflicts. 1. The arrival of Dee-Dee's baby was always destined to be a complicated affair. But when she unexpectedly goes into labor next week, it sets off a chain reaction of events that will lead to profound heartbreak. What should have been a moment of new beginnings instead plunges her into turmoil, forcing her to confront the difficult choices she has made along the way. Dee-Dee first learned she was pregnant in November, a discovery that immediately left her conflicted. The baby was fathered by her abusive ex-fiancé Joel, who was later killed by Lauren. From the outset, she was certain she didn't want to continue the pregnancy. However, her decision took an unexpected turn when Lauren's baby, Frankie, who was also Joel's child, was diagnosed with a serious illness, requiring a stem cell transplant. Although Dee-Dee had intended to terminate the pregnancy, she ultimately chose to carry the baby to full term in hopes of being a donor match for Frankie. But just as she came to terms with this choice, Lauren announced that an alternative donor had been found, rendering Dee-Dee's sacrifice unnecessary. With no reason to delay any longer, Lauren opted to proceed with the treatment, leaving Dee-Dee to process the implications of her decision. Meanwhile, Dee-Dee's brother James arrived from the US with a surprising proposal. He and his partner Danny wanted to adopt the baby. Just days later, Dee-Dee experienced severe abdominal pain, prompting James to rush her to the hospital. However, doctors reassured her that the discomfort was due to Braxton Hicks contractions, signaling false labor rather than the real thing. Next week, with Frankie's stem cell transplant imminent, Dee-Dee assures Lauren that she's sure it will be a success. But as she does so, Dee-Dee doubles over in pain again. Heading back to Weatherfield General, Dee-Dee is again told that these are false labor pains and to go home and rest. But after returning to the flat, Dee-Dee's waters break, and so it's back to maternity unit again with Aaliyah and Dad Ed there for support. Dee-Dee is in indescribable pain, as Ed desperately tries to find anyone that can help her. They appear to hit dead end after dead end though, and Dee-Dee and Aaliyah are shocked when one of the midwives makes an inappropriate remark about her. When Dee-Dee is finally seen by one of the doctors, her blood pressure confirms that she is suffering from preeclampsia. The doctor informs a terrified Dee-Dee that her baby needs to be delivered right now. The condition can rapidly deteriorate and it can be potentially fatal to the mother and baby. Chanik explains. 2. Dee-Dee reveals her devastating news. After being rushed in for the emergency delivery where she gives birth to a baby girl, Dee-Dee's ordeal is far from over when she then suffers a massive hemorrhage and collapses. As Dee-Dee is whisked into surgery, the doctors are forced to carry out an emergency hysterectomy to save her life. As potential adoptive dad James says he would like to call the baby Layla, Dee-Dee tries to hide her upset. As James and Michael leave Dee-Dee alone with her dad, Dee-Dee breaks the heartbreaking news to Ed that she will not be able to have any more children. Ed urges her to carefully consider whether she can go through with giving up her baby. When James discovers what has happened, he knows that it could change everything that had been planned. Meanwhile, unaware of everything that has gone down, Lauren pays Dee-Dee a visit to tell her that Frankie's stem cell surgery has been a success. But she's in no way prepared for Dee-Dee's reaction. When Dee-Dee finally makes up her mind about what to do with Layla, James receives a message that throws yet another massive curveball into their lives. 3. Dee-Dee wants answers. Later in the week, Dee-Dee is readying herself to leave the hospital when Ed arrives. With Layla unexpectedly in tow, Dee-Dee is shocked when Ed reveals what has happened, and that James has gone back to the US. As Dee-Dee becomes to come to terms with everything that's happened over the past couple of days, she tells Aaliyah and Sarah that her situation could have been avoided if she had been listened to from the beginning. Dee-Dee firmly believes that she has a case against the hospital for gross negligence, questioning whether it was because of her ethnicity. and will be starting the process of making an official complaint. The show has worked with 3 organizations in putting together this story. Birthrights, a charity which was set up to protect human rights during pregnancy and childbirth. Motivational Mums Club, who empower mothers to make informed choices and be able to advocate for themselves. And 5x More, the UK's leading women's health organisation focused on black maternal health. 4. Daisy and Christina plot Jenny's downfall. Over at the Rovers, the relationship between Daisy and stepmom Jenny is at an all-time low. Things between the pair had already been strained over the past weeks, after Jenny's interference saw Daniel wrongly named as the father of Daisy's unborn child, before Daisy went on to lose the baby after being hit by a car. The past week has seen Jenny learn of a sudden windfall, £60 of shares in her name, set up long ago by ex-husband Gregory. She attempted to use the money as part payment for the money they owe Carla, but Carla refused, instead telling Jenny to use the cash to get a business loan so they could pay her off fully. Daisy was miffed when she discovered Jenny's secret and, discussing it with Daniel, wondered how long she would keep her in the dark about the cash. Things quickly escalated when Jenny was distracted by a call from the bank whilst minding Daniel's son Bertie. Bertie found his way into the garden of number 4 after losing his football, and managed to end up in the water of the hot tub. Thankfully Bertie came to no harm, but Daisy admonished her stepmom for letting it happen, particularly since Jenny had lost her son, Daisy's stepbrother Tom, back in 2013 when he drowned in a paddling pool. Back at the Rovers, Daisy stuck the knife in further as she told Jenny that she was neglectful. Jenny interjected as she warned Daisy not to bring up Tom's death, telling her she may regret doing so. But as Daisy continued to push, telling Jenny that she wasn't cut out to be a mother, Jenny finally snapped and turned the tables back on Daisy, finally deciding to tell her something she'd been holding in for 12 years. Jenny blurted out that it was in fact Daisy's fault that Tom had died, as she had failed to keep an eye on him after Jenny requested she do so. Daisy was horrified at the accusation and quickly denied responsibility, but Jenny doubled down on her claim. Daniel later tried to convince Daisy that Jenny only made the cutting remark in the heat of the moment. But Daisy's mind was clearly made up. She made a call to an unknown person, asking them for their help with something. Next week, Daisy is still hurt following the argument, and tells Daniel that Jenny has gone too far this time. Later in the day, the person at the end of Daisy's phone call is revealed, when her mum Christina turns up at the Rovers. Daisy feigns her surprise at the arrival, and Christina soon finds herself in a bit of light sparring of words with Jenny as she makes her presence felt. When Jenny and Daisy have a tense talk, Daisy explains that she's not sure she will ever be able to forgive Jenny for the awful thing she said. Later in the week, Jenny has found herself a distraction in the form of a guy called Dom, who has matched with her on a dating app. Daisy and Christina are delighted, mainly because Jenny has no idea that Dom doesn't exist. She is being catfished by them. As the pair continue to reel Jenny in, Christina takes the next step of ordering a bouquet of flowers to arrive for Jenny from Dom. As Christina sends Jenny another messages, Daisy begins to worry that it won't be long before Jenny wants to meet Dom in person. Is Daisy already beginning to regret her plan? 5. Debbie is found collapsed. Meanwhile, Mick and Debbie continue to get on the wrong side of each other, after a disagreement over an invoice which Debbie is refusing to pay in full. Debbie later went on to accuse Mick of stealing her purse, which had seemingly gone missing, with Debbie's boyfriend Ronnie finding himself squaring up to Mick. Next week, Debbie is over at number 13 and orders brother Kevin, who is undergoing treatment for testicular cancer, to get some rest whilst she takes care of his young son Alfie. But it's not long before the peace is disturbed by loud music from one of the neighboring properties. Heading out into the Ginnell to investigate, she finds it's coming from 12 Maudsley Street, Mick and Lou's house. When Ronnie later calls by and finds Alfie alone, Ronnie sees the back door is open and heads out to see where Debbie's got to. He's shocked to find Debbie lying on the ground in the Ginnell, dazed and confused. Did Mick attack her? Or is this part of the continued symptoms towards Debbie's eventual dementia diagnosis? 6. Ronnie has a warning for Gemma and Chesney. Ronnie seems to have made his mind up about what happened, and he's concerned when he later sees Chesney and Gemma chatting with Mick and Lou. The Winter Browns have been getting on with the Michaelis family well since they moved in. But little do they realize that Mick is playing a long game, having been the mystery van driver who Chesney got into a war with last year. Butter wouldn't melt as Mick offers a chuffed Chesney and Gemma their old TV, an upgrade from their existing one, and the use of a roof box for when the family head away on holiday with the 5 kids. With Mick continuing to goad Ronnie, Ronnie warns Gemma and Chesney that their new bestie isn't all he appears to be, and that they should watch their backs. Ronnie later decides to teach Mick a lesson by slashing a tire on his van, only to be spotted by Debbie. She isn't the only one though, when Mick later reveals that Ronnie was seen on the van's dashcam. As such, he's now demanding the money owed from his invoice, as well for the damage to his van. Later in the week, revelations about Mick on his mind. Chesney is anxious when he receives a text from Mick inviting him for a drink. Chesney does his best to hide how nervous he is as he meets Mick in the Rovers, and is relieved when he's finally able to head home and settle down in front of the TV with Gemma. The peace is soon broken though, when Mick and Lou arrive complete with beer and snacks. Will Chesney be able to distance himself before Mick inevitably turns against him? 7. Kevin and Julie bond. Kevin faces a round of chemo at the hospital. As he emerges from the hospital later and collects his thoughts on a bench, he's joined there by Julie, who is currently living with her own terminal cancer diagnosis. The unlikely pair end up in a deep and meaningful as they talk, and Julie suggests they get the tram home together. Later on, Abby is anxious having not been able to get hold of Kevin, and when she eventually learns that he was with Julie without her knowledge, she becomes angry. Is Abby about to believe Kevin has his eyes on another woman? 8. Kevin and Tyrone clash over their kids. Meanwhile, Kevin's son Jack manages to get himself into more trouble following his near suspension from school for fighting. After Debbie was called to the school to pick up her nephew, she managed to persuade Mrs. Crawshaw to withdraw the suspension. Debbie suggested to Jack that they kept what happened from Kevin, not wanting to put any more stress in him, but we got the distinct feeling that there was more to the story that the two were keeping quiet about. Kevin inevitably finds out about the altercation next week, and as punishment bans Jack from attending the upcoming end-of-term party. Kevin can't help but feel he's been a bit too hard on Jack however. When Jack later hangs out with Hope at the precinct, the pair spot Nick and Toya turn up on a pair of hired e-scooters. Jack pays for the pair to rent them out, as the ever-rebellious Hope removes a small bottle of booze from her bag and offers it to Jack. Unfortunately for them, the teens are immediately sprung by police officers Craig and Jess whilst out on patrol. If that wasn't bad enough, Kevin and Tyrone are not far behind them, and Kevin is furious when Jack is forced to admit that he paid for the scooters using Kevin's credit card. The incident goes on to cause tension between colleagues Kevin and Tyrone, as the two later argue over whose child is the worse influence on the other. Could this break their friendship? 9. What is Theo hiding from Todd? Also next week, Todd is happy to get a second chance with Theo after believing he'd blown things last week. Todd felt certain that he had a chemistry with the scaffolder when they first met on Victoria Street, which was only reinforced when the two went out for a drink together. With Theo also high on her gaydar, Julie had tricked Theo into calling over at number 11 after she arranged for Todd to be there home alone. But after realizing they'd been set up, Theo bluntly told Todd that any signals had been purely in his mind. He wasn't gay, and wanted Todd to stay away from him. Todd reluctantly went back to one of his dating apps and found himself exchanging flirty messages with an unknown member. When he finally plucked up the courage to ask for a pic, Todd was surprised to see that it was Theo he had been right all along. Next week, Todd arranges to meet up with Theo again, who on his arrival at number 11 knocks on the back door. Todd's a bit confused as Theo apologizes for his undercover approach, seemingly not wanting to be seen visiting from the street. The two start to relax as they crack open the beers, and Theo admits to a relieved Todd that he is attracted to him. The two share a passionate kiss, and as one thing leads to another, they head upstairs and spend the afternoon in bed together. When the two come back down, Theo explains to Todd that his life is complicated at the moment, and he would prefer to keep their hooking up on the down low. But when he hears Eileen, George and Julie return, Theo cannot get out of the back door fast enough to avoid being seen, leaving his coat behind in the process. When he later returns, Theo seems to be blowing cold with Todd once again, and tells him that their liaison was a one-off. As Todd is left gutted over the rejection, just what is Theo hiding that has made him so reluctant to pursue a relationship with him? Thanks for watching and stay tuned for more movie spoilers next week. Goodbye and see you again.